Chapter 27. Will's head ached abominably. A constant rhythmic thudding pounded through his skull, setting flashes off behind his tight-closed eyes. He forced his eyes open and found himself staring close range at a sheepskin vest and the back of a pair of leather-bound woolen leggings. The world was upside down, and he realized he was being carried over someone's shoulder. The thudding was the sound of the man's feet as he jogged along. Will wished he would walk. He groaned aloud, and the jogging stopped.
"Eric,"
the man carrying him called.
"He's awake."
And so saying, the Scandian lowered him to the ground. Will tried to take a pace, but his knees gave out, and he sunk to his haunches. Eric, the leader of the group, leaned down now and examined him. One thick thumb caught hold of his eyelid, and he felt his eye being opened wide. The man wasn't cruel, but he was none too gentle either. Will recognized him now as the Scandian who had come so close to discovering him when he was eavesdropping by their campfire in the valley.
He said thoughtfully. "Concussed, most likely. That was a good throw with that rock, Nordle,"
he said to one of the others. The Scandian he'd spoken to, a giant of a man with his blond hair and two tightly plaited braids that were greased so that they swept upward like horns, smiled at the praise.
"Grew up hunting seals and penguins that way, I did," he said with some satisfaction.
Eric released Will's eyelid and moved away. Now Will felt a gentler touch on his face, and opening his eyes again, found himself looking into Evangelin's eyes. She stroked his forehead gently, trying to clean away the dried, matted blood there. "Are you all right?" she asked, and he nodded, then realized that was not a good idea.
"Fine,"
he managed, fighting back a wave of nausea. "They got you as well," he added, unnecessarily, and she nodded. "Horace?" he said softly, and she put a finger to her lips. "He got away," she whispered. "I saw him running when the bridge collapsed." Will sighed with relief. "We did it then? We got the bridge?" This time it was Evangelin's turn to nod. A smile even touched her lips at the memory of the bridge crashing into the depths of the fissure. "It's gone," she said, "well and truly." Eric heard the last two words. He shook his head at them.
"And no thanks you'll get from Morgoth for that," he told them.
Will felt a small chill of fear at the mention of the Lord of Rain and Night's name. Here on the plateau it seemed somehow more ominous, more dangerous, altogether more malevolent. The Scandian glanced at the sun.
"We'll take a break," he said. "Maybe our friend here will be up to walking in an hour or so."
The Scandians opened their packs and produced food and drink. They tossed a water bottle and a small loaf of bread to Will and Evangelin, and the two ate hungrily. Evangelin began to say something, but Will raised a hand to hush her. He was listening to the Scandians' conversation.
"So, what do we do now?"
asked the one called Nordle. Eric chewed a piece of dried cod, washed it down with a gulp of the fiery liquor he carried in a leather bottle, and shrugged.
"For mine, we get out of here as fast as we can," he said. "We only came for the booty, and there's going to be precious little of that now that the bridge is gone." "Morgoth won't like it if we pull out," warned a short, heavily built member of the party.
Eric simply shrugged.
"Horak, I'm not here to help Morgoth take over Ralhuin," he replied, "and neither are you. We fight for profit, and when there's no profit to be had, I say we go."
Horak looked down at the ground between his feet and scratched in the dust with his fingers. He didn't look up when he spoke again.
"What about those two?"
he said, and Will heard a sharp intake of breath from Evangelin as she realized the Scandian meant her and Will.
"We take 'em with us,"
said Eric, and this time Horak looked up from the dust, where he was drawing senseless patterns.
"What good are they to us? Why shouldn't we just hand 'em over to the Wargles?" he asked, and the others mumbled their agreement. It was obviously a question that had been on their minds. They'd simply been waiting for someone else to bring it up. "I'll tell you," said Eric. "I'll tell you what good they are to us. First and foremost, they're hostages, aren't they?"
"Hostages?" snorted the fourth member of the group, the one who so far hadn't spoken. Eric rounded on him.
"That's right, Svengel," he told them. "They're hostages. Now, I've been on more raids and in more campaigns than any of you, and I don't like the way this one's shaping up. Seems to me like Mogroth's been getting too clever for his own good. All this leaking false plans and building secret tunnels and planning surprise attacks with Horth and his men coming around Thorntree Forest. It's too complicated, and complicated isn't the way to go when you're facing people like the Araluans.
Horth can still attack around the thorn tree, said Svengle stubbornly, but Eric was shaking his head.
He can, but he won't know that the bridge is gone, will he? He'll be expecting support that will never come. I'll wager Morgoth won't hurry to tell him. He knows Horth would give it all away if he found out. Let me tell you, it'll be a toss of a coin to see which way the battle goes. That's the problem with those clever plans. You take away one element and the whole thing can come crashing down.
There was a short silence while the other Scandians thought about what he had said. A few heads nodded in agreement, and Eric continued.
I'll tell you, boys, I don't like the way things are shaping, and I say we should take the chance to go to Horth's ships through the fens.
Why not go back the way we came? Asked Svengle, but his leader shook his head emphatically.
And try to get down those cliffs again, with Morgoth after us? He asked. No, thank you. I don't think he'd take too kindly to deserters. We'll go along with him as far as 3-Step Pass. Then once we're in the open, we'll head east for the coast.
He paused to let this sink in.
And we'll have these two as hostages in case the Araluans try to stop us, he added.
They're kids, said Nordal derisively.
What use are they to us as hostages?
Didn't you see that oak leaf amulet the boy is wearing? Eric asked, and instinctively Will's hand went to the oak leaf on the thong around his neck.
That's the ranger's symbol, Eric continued. He's one of them.
Maybe some kind of trainee. They look after their own.
And what about the girl?
Asked Svengle. She's no ranger.
That's right, Eric agreed. She's just a girl. But I'm not handing any girl over to the Wargles. You've seen what they're like. They're worse than animals, that lot. No, she comes with us.
There was another moment silent as the others considered his words. Then Horik spoke.
Fair enough, he agreed.
Eric looked around at the others and saw that Horik had spoken for them all. The Scandians were warriors and hard men, but they weren't totally ruthless.
Good, he said. Now, let's go down the road again.
He rose and moved toward Will and Evanlin while the other Scandians repacked the remains of the brief meal.
Can you walk? He asked Will. Or does Nordal need to carry you again?
Will flushed angrily and rose quickly to his feet. Instantly he wished he hadn't. The ground heaved and his head swam. He staggered, and only Evanlin's firm hand on his arm prevented him from falling. He was determined not to show weakness in front of his captors. He steadied himself, then glared defiantly at Eric. "I'll walk," he managed to say, and the big Scandian studied him for a moment, an appraising look in his eye.
"Yes," he said finally, "I dare say you will."